Obviously, in the translation industry, we've had a lot of impact from AI in the last decade or more. Content creation game at the moment is somewhat being revolutionized, right? Because, clearly the way we're working is changing.
So, first question.
Let's do it.
What are some of the most significant AI trends currently impacting translation technology?
Well, I think obviously in the translation industry, we've had a lot of impact from AI in the last decade or more already. There's been neural machine translation that's been really making leaps and bounds over the last 10 years or so. And that's also now driving a lot of changes and a lot of exciting innovations in the translation industry as well. Well, so there's many different use cases where AI comes into the translation process or the translation industry. The most obvious is obviously machine translation. That's been around for quite a long time. So that's natural language processing that's used to generate target translations. But equally, natural language processing can actually also do other translation related tasks. That's content understanding, that's summarization, that is things like identifying personal data in text, so entity recognition tasks and things like that. So obviously these are, combining together now with LLM being much more multimodal than neural machine translation used to be. And also one of the other, I think, adjacent tasks that is quite exciting for the translation industry is there's been advances through AI in image processing. So impacting tasks such as OCR and conversion of files and extracting text from images, given that a lot of content is moving into more multimedia formats away from just textual content. Some of these advances are obviously really exciting for us in the industry. So I would say there's a give and take in it, right? So there are things where definitely large language models are hugely exciting and are much better than traditional neural machine translation approaches. Large language models are very good at understanding context. So there's exciting stuff where if you want to drive understanding beyond just the sentence level, segments or paragraphs, then the fact that it can understand context from entire documents, that it can make correlations, that's obviously bringing an aspect into translation which was, lacking previously. However, there's trade-offs where, the neural machine translation models, they've been very specialized. Often they've been single task, single language pair. As such, there's been fairly repeatable output consistency with that. And you don't really get that with large language models. You get a lot more hallucination, you get a lot more creativity, I guess, in the output, right? But that's not always desirable, especially if you're looking for repeatable output quality in your translations. So at the moment, it's still a little bit in the balance, but over time, we will probably expect that large language models will start replacing neural machine translation systems. Absolutely, yes. I think you've obviously got your translation tasks for sure, and you can integrate them into your translation chain. But if you're looking at kind of the content distribution from a bigger picture, what you're really looking at is customers are also going to be able, or even ourselves, to use some of the predictive capabilities of LLMs to understand where content might be performing well, like really understanding the data of what content has value to somebody, and then using some of the capabilities of LLMs to kind of drive the right processes of where that content goes, how it gets curated, etc. I think, yes, absolutely you can. There's applications that will come into SEO or digital marketing that you can use with that for sure. And then also the entire content creation game at the moment is somewhat being revolutionized, right? Translation kind of comes downstream from that, but AI, like neural machine translation, mainly affected translations back in the day because it was a very specifically translation related task. But LLM application goes outside of that. It covers other content creation aspects, other natural language processing tasks. So really that's why you're seeing impacts across all sorts of industries. And there's going to be shifts in the way that enterprises produce their own content, curate their own content, etc., and distribute it as well. I think there is one risk that, whether it's NMT or LLM, probably remains unchanged, right? The risk around the accuracy and the usability of the content, which, there always needs to be that assessment of any machine generated content. Can you take the risk of it not having been assessed, reviewed, etc.? What is the criticality of that content, and do you trust that the machine is not hallucinating or providing you something that is inaccurate, right? So there's that content risk, and that's not going away. There's going to be different routes on how you mitigate that. Other risks that I would say currently linked to the sort of implementation of AI in enterprises, which go beyond just looking at the content flows, but it's also, there are some regulatory risks at the moment starting to emerge. You obviously have governments and institutions looking at regulating what AI is doing, how it is being created, how it is being produced. So I would say we're very much in that period at the moment where, thinking back to, for example, how advertising and personal information handling got impacted by GDPR, are we going to have a splash of GDPR in AI application, and what does that mean to us as businesses? What kind of level of compliance do people need to show? How is that going to impact innovation? How is that going to impact output, etc.? So that transformation is likely to come. And then there's another risk here, which is, new technologies require people to be able to apply and implement them appropriately. There is a huge need to upskill people, to have the right talent in organization, to have the right solutions architect. So that's not just for us as an organization, where we obviously are investing in our team to understand these technologies, to apply them, to test the use cases. But as they gain footholds across all enterprises, there is a real need to get people upskilled. And as technology moves so fast at the moment, what is that skill of people actually? I've been talking to some universities that are basically saying some of the technical skills that people come into university with, they get superseded by new developments within a year or two. So how can you, do people need to have technical skills, or do they need to have broader skills of solution architecting, and actually do you teach technical skills versus understanding of the bigger picture, right? But there's risks in that area, because applying these models and technologies wrongly, you can also damage your impact, your reputation, your content, etc. I think, firstly, obviously, we're very hands-on with some of these technologies. Running pilots, proofs of concept with some of the newer emerging technologies, and to then look at what kind of operationalizes and scales well is one part of what we do for sure, and that's very exciting for us in the technology team. But beyond that, I think one of the key things that we've been doing as an organization is thinking about what kind of team and team members do we need in order to embrace the workflow changes that this is going to drive, and process changes, interactions with customers. What kind of skills do these people need? Do we have these kind of skills in-house, or do we maybe need to hire people in? Or how can we upskill our own workforce? And some of that we've already started, some of this we're still in the process of implementing. But again, I think as a responsible employer, we need to make sure that our team is upskilled to understand these trends and technologies, and how to implement them, and consult with customers appropriately, and also think of the best solutions to deal with. I think everybody's job is changing, and we need to continuously evaluate how we operate together, and how we build the solutions, and what it means, and also again where these technologies are hype and where they are actually scalable, right? There's a lot of this at the moment where, if you look at the Gartner hype cycle, a lot of what we've spoken about today, we're at the top of that hype cycle right now, which is exciting because, there's a lot going on, but equally there is also, sometimes I feel like my role is also bringing in a sense of measurement and kind of going like, yes, but, it's one thing having one use case where it works, but how do you actually scale this across an operation and into a workflow, etc. So, it's something that we need to continue to have our teams being able to provide the right kind of advice and consultancy. So, I think reassuringly for anyone that is worried about the impact that AI might be having on jobs, etc. I think from a human point of view, for example, the consensus of all of the talks and symposiums and whatnot I've been to is that, it's absolutely not replacing the human at this point. It's kind of, yes, it can replace certain tasks that humans are doing, and we should also look towards what these tasks are, because many of them are repetitive or possibly quite boring to humans. Therefore, why not use co-piloted applications? But I think very much the consensus is where we are right now is the applications are co-pilots basically. So they need the human to steer, they need the human to validate, they need the human to drive in order to get the right output. So I think human in the loop is very much a core concept to all of it, and it's not just reviewing the output from the LLMs, but also I do see, for example, particularly the role of linguists as going slightly upstream in terms of driving some of the decision making around how you generate the content, right? Prompt engineering is a key example, but there's also, I think there is a bit of a transformation of that happening, where I think the individual task of translation as it used to be might not look the same anymore, but it's becoming content generation in the wider sense. And I think, translators are very key to that multilingual content creation chain, and that's where their role is going to be significant. But I do think it's very important for us as a leader in the industry to ensure that people get upskilled in the right places, that universities can provide the right skill sets for graduates coming in, etc. Because clearly the way we're working is changing.